And here with us on set to discuss Washington's agenda for the rest of the year, California Congressman Khanna. What are you back here for, bro?
I come to New York. Every time I come to New York, I visit this set. Whenever you have me.
Which we do appreciate it. I thought, the NBC tree's going to get lit pretty soon if you can hang out.
That's spectacular.
Like it might be
that's a family thing. I got to bring the family.
It is. But do you have things to do in Washington? And if so, what are they? What is going to happen? Are we going to fund the government?
Well, we got to pass a budget. I mean, obviously, we've passed this continuing resolution to move us to January. But I don't understand why we can't pass the budget that McCarthy and Biden agreed on. There was a deal. There was a funding level. Let's just vote on it.
Yeah. What do you make of the absolutely bizarre reaction in both sides, both Republicans and Democrats? To me, just watching the situation in Israel, I mean, I need some type of blueprint to get me to figure out how the sides decide on their positions. And I'm thinking about some members of the fringe Democratic Party. Are you mortified at some of the comments that you've seen from the Squad, for example?
Well, here, let me say what my position is, which I think is a common sense position. At the one hand, you got to unequivocally condemn the brutal terrorist attacks on October 7th. And I met with some of the hostages' families. Actually, the young daughter, Abigail, the young girl who was released, I met with her aunt in my office. I mean, it was heartbreaking. And I'm glad that she's finally been released. I thought Israel had the right to defend itself. But I do believe we're at a time now where Israel has significantly deteriorated the Hamas's capability.
How do we know that, Ro? How do you know that how do you know that okay, if Israel has a right to exist, do you believe Israel has a...
The young hostage was released, but her parents were killed in front of her.
Right, and okay, Israel has a right to exist.
Yes.
Can it exist if Hamas is not destroyed? If on that border at any time something like this can happen again? There's no society that should have that hanging over its head. So if it doesn't have a right to exist, fine. But if it has a right to exist and defend itself, then they're not finished. They need to completely crush. And they're not going to be able to because of this type of, I don't know what you call it. The opinions are softening now because of we're seeing horrific things happen. But in war, horrific things do happen.
But Joe, I mean, here's the reality. There's 38,000 to 40,000 Hamas fighters. Israel has killed, by their own estimates, 1,000 to 2,000. And there have been almost 12,000 civilian casualties. Children, I mean, killed. Half of them have been children.
But you remember that Hamas are holding children in front of them, shielding themselves. And they started this. They started this by slaughtering 1,400 people.
Yes, bro. No, so, I agree with you that Hamas is in hospitals.
What choices does Israel have?
If you do the math and you actually are going to try to eliminate all of the 40,000 Hamas fighters, you're talking about 300,000 civilian casualties, of 50% being children. I just don't think that is, from a humanitarian perspective, something we should do. So what can we do? We ought to diminish the military capability, make sure, and by the way, now they're going to have troops at the border, make sure there's no attack ever again like October 7th, which I don't think there will be given the northern Gaza military operation, and then have some negotiated peace, which doesn't involve Hamas. I'm not saying the condition for a negotiation of Palestinian state should be the recognition of Israel, and Hamas right now does not recognize Israel. I agree they're a terrorist organization.
If you were Iran and you were sort of the brains behind all this, which a lot of people think that it's exactly playing right into what they knew would happen and how they've orchestrated this whole thing. What eventually happens with Iran, Ro? What do we do? Can Israel exist if Iran gets the bomb, gets a nuclear bomb? How do we handle that? What's our duty as Americans?
Well, I just voted for a bill saying that our American foreign policy should be to deny Iran a nuclear weapon, and that passed overwhelmingly. So there's bipartisan consensus that American foreign policy should be to deny Iran a weapon. Now, my view is that the maximum pressure campaign that Trump tried didn't work, that Iran is far closer to a nuclear weapon today than they were under President Obama. But we need to figure out how we stop them from developing a nuclear weapon. I agree with you.
Does that mean a military strike if they're on the verge of it?
No, I think a military strike today would be premature. It would get us into another Middle East war. And the one thing I think Americans can agree with is we don't want to escalate and be in the Middle East again. We spent $6 trillion.
What about something akin to when the Trump administration, what would you call it? I guess it was you saw what happened to Suleiman. He was a Revolutionary Guard. Yeah. Nothing happened after that. I mean, is that too much? I mean, you don't need a full-on military strike just to show that you mean business.
I don't think that would take out Iran's nuclear weapons. I mean, this is not like Iraq, where Israel had gone in.
Well, now we're not just talking about that. We're talking about what are we up to now, and how many attacks on U.S. interests from proxies in Iran? We're up to about 80 or something, aren't we, or more?
And we've defended ourselves. The President Biden, when we
hasn't stopped it, though, right?
I think we've got to be very clear. Of course, if there's an attack on American troops, American interests, we've got to respond, and I would support responding. But the last thing we want is to escalate this into a war. I mean, you and I know, we've talked about China. I mean, we can't take our eye off the ball of the threat there and get into another.
But we don't want a blue line Syria situation. That was another. Do you think that wasn't effective in terms of dealing with Syria?
Syria was a huge disaster, but I don't know if there could have been a good policy with Assad. I mean, Assad was a brutal dictator. He gassed his own people. I don't think we should have gotten into war in Syria. And the question is then, what could have prevented Assad? I mean, he was a horrible human being.
Can we shift gears and talk a little bit about OpenAI and what's happening?
I am the tech congressman. This is like a foreign policy heavy discussion.
This is in your backyard, and it's roiled the valley. It's got everybody across the country paying attention, and maybe around the globe, too. What the heck happened?
Becky, actually, you asked the perfect question, which is, why don't we know what happened, right? I mean, to me, if there's one headline, it should be OpenAI's board should tell us what the concerns were. What we have speculated is it was this Q+ product that they're developing, artificial general intelligence that can solve complex math problems. And some people were concerned that this really wouldn't just be artificial intelligence deducting patterns, but actually computing things that could really cause safety concerns. We don't know. We should know. Every journalist should demand that OpenAI's board tell us what the safety concerns were.
I mean, we've talked about that, because if this is something that truly is a threat to humanity, in the past, if it was the Manhattan Project, that was run by the government. It was not private companies or public companies that were funding this stuff. Now what? Do you have real concerns about this? I
do. I think there should actually be an AI agency in the federal government that is overseeing the development of this technology and licensing the technology where appropriate. I mean, I do have concerns about it, but at the very least, we should know what happened. I mean, if it's not a concern, if folks who, like Sam Altman and others, think, okay, it's not as big a concern, then let the public know. Let the public know what the issues were. There's been a secrecy and a lack of transparency that I find concerning. The other issue, which in my view is a bigger issue and hasn't gotten enough attention, is the wealth disparity that this may cause. Look, globalization has led to a situation where the 1% in this country control 30-some% of the wealth, bottom 50% of 2% of the wealth, and you're going to have AI. It's going to be great for my district. All these companies are going to do well. What's going to happen to workers? What's going to happen to ordinary folks?
Concerned enough that you are going to demand that the board tell you from your congressional point of view on this? Is there additional regulation that's coming?
Yes. No, I mean, I'm calling for it today, but maybe with congressional colleagues would write a letter or to take actions. I mean, I think it could be a hearing where we need to know what happened with the concerns of the OpenAI board of directors, and they should be transparent about it.
Nobody is in either party is enthralled with what the choices are apparently going to be. I think that's safe to say. You would agree with that?
I agree. Well, okay. I mean, I'm for the president, but I agree with you.
That's where I'm going with this. So then if you do, obviously, with 70% even Democratic disapproval for the president right now, and you look at the polls, you're counting on Donald Trump being so bad that Joe Biden gets reelected. That's what Democrats are counting. Is that, if I got the strategy right?
Well, it's also talking about the president's record. I mean, look, people are upset because prices are high, rents are high, interest rates are high. But the president has done a lot. Infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, American Rescue Plan.
The Bidenomics pitch doesn't work, bro. It's just not working right now. With the world on fire, everything else going on in the world. That's why each week he's setting new lows for approvals. With Democrats, too, and with minorities, and with young people. It's just not working, selling the Bidenomics. It's just...
You know, my honest view on it is, Joe, I think anyone today who was president of the United States would have low approval ratings. I think this, for whatever reason, this country is in a place...
You understand that this is Joe Biden at 81. He just had a birthday. You're comfortable with Joe Biden at 85 in the job as president, honestly?
Honestly, I've met with him probably a month ago. If you see him, he keeps a 14-hour day. He is capable of doing the job. We could have an argument.
We don't know 2-3 years from now whether he is.
We don't know. Life is unpredictable for anyone.
Yeah, but we do know that people do age and get to a certain point where they probably should not be president of the United States.
Oh, Joe, if you ask me...
Are you comfortable with Kamala Harris, a heartbeat away, with vice president, a heartbeat away from that?
Yes, I am. Look, here's the point. Do I wish Joe Biden was 65? Sure. But there's no perfect candidate. There never is.
I think you're counting on Trump being so bad. And I think the whole Democratic Party is. But now they're starting to worry. You look at the swing states, that might not be happening. That whole strategy might not be working if Trump's ahead.
I'll tell you what we need. We need a better...
We need Joe Roe. Or no, Rojo. We need us.
But if you want to have the ticket...
You're afraid to head... Why do I have to... I don't want the hard job. I want you to be on the top of the ticket.
You gotta have a woman...
You'll be Secretary of State? Is state good
I'm
for
pretty
you?
comfortable where I am.
She's smart. She doesn't want to get 35, 40...
Well, I don't want to be the top of the ticket. That's way too high. I want Kamala's job.
Everybody hates you, right?
Really?
Yeah.
The vice president?
Yeah, I want to relax. Congressman, thank you. Thanks for being in studio.
Appreciate it.